Good morning and happy Monday. We have come to the end. All right, so today is going to be the last day we learn something brand new. We will practice it tomorrow. We will review kind of what we've learned about matrices on Wednesday, and we'll have a quiz on Thursday, and then we'll be done. So Thursday is your last day. All right, so here are the answers from Friday's work. Few of you who turned it in, I gave you feedback on which ones you might have missed or whatever. But here they are with the work. Make sure when you state dimensions, you put 2 by 3 with the little X instead of like a comma. Okay. But you did great on those. And then here are the last ones, 14 through 25. So check each individual thing. It's going to be kind of tough. I'm going to have you submit this stuff via picture to me just because, typing that in Google Forms is going to be difficult. But anyways, there are your answers. Today we're going to do something it's multiplying matrices. So we've talked about adding, we've talked about subtracting. They're pretty easy. We've talked about distributing, scalar multiplication. That's pretty easy as well. Multiplication is not quite so easy. It takes a little bit more effort. So I hope you'll really pay close attention as we talk about this last thing. So for multiplying matrices, it's not the same as adding and subtracting. With adding and subtracting, if you remember, you wanted to have the same dimensions. So like a 2 by 3 times a 2 by 3. But for multiplying matrices, you actually want the inner dimensions to match. So what I mean by that is, so let's look at this first example. If you have a 2 by 3 times a 3 by 2, you can multiply them because the inner dimensions match. These are the inner dimensions. Okay? They match, they're exactly the same number, so you can multiply them. All right? Now, if you look at the second example, a 2 by 1 and a 2 by 1, you cannot multiply these because these inner dimensions do not match, okay? So this one cannot be multiplied, and this one can. And then the resulting matrix will have dimensions of the outer dimensions. So what that means is the outer dimensions would be this and this. So when we multiply these two matrices, a 2 by 3 and a 3 by 2, our answer should be a 2 by 2 matrix. Okay, so it kind of tells you what it should look like. All right. So let's talk about how we actually do this because it takes a little bit of effort here. All right, so we're going to multiply a row times a column. All right. And then we're going to add those numbers up. All right, so we got to be really careful to do some scratch work, if you will. All right, so the first thing we need to ask ourselves is, can we do it? Because as you remember, there are going to be a few trick questions here and there where you have to write impossible or not possible or undefined. There are many ways you can say it, but where you can't do it, basically. So first of all, let's check our inner dimensions. Do the inner dimensions match here? And the answer is yes, they match. So we can multiply them. So what is our answer going to look like? What is our final answer will be a what kind of matrix here, right? So our answer will be the outer dimensions, which would be a 1 by 2. So that means a 1 by 2 times a 2 by 2 will give us a 1 by 2. Remember, that means one row, so it's going to be kind of like this. One row and 2 columns. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that because that's where I'm going to put my final answers in just a moment. All right, so here's how you do it. You take the first row, which this one only has one row, so you don't have to worry about that. And you're going to times it to the first column. Okay? Now, note, I'm just going to write down some scratch work over here to the side, okay? So what we do is we multiply this first number, -1, times the first number over here, which is 0. Well, -1 times 0 gives me 0. I'm going to write that down. Then I move to the next one, okay? So then I go 4 times -2. So I did the -1 times the 0, and now I'm going to move my fingers to both I don't stay on the same number at all. So I did -1 times 0. Now I'm going to do 4 times -2, which gives me -8. So I'm going to write those two numbers down just as I see them. Now, because I'm done with this row and I'm done with this column, I'm going to sum these two numbers up or add them up. In this case, 0 minus 8 is -8, and there's my first answer. So it's a mixture of multiplication and addition or subtraction. In this case, it was subtraction because it was a negative. Okay? All right, so now you stay on the same row. So I'm going to stay on the same row, but I'm going to move to the next column. So you always want to go row, column. So stay on the row, move to the next column. Okay, so we're going to do the first number, which is -1, times my 4, the first number over there. So that's going to be -4. Then I move. I don't do the same numbers at all again. So I'm going to move, and now I'm going to do 4 times -5, which will give me -20. And now I'm going to add those up. So -4 minus 20 gives me -24. And there's my answer. So I'm done. I've done the first row times the first column, and then I've done that same first row to the second column. So I've multiplied all of my numbers. And so now I have a 1/2 matrix, and that's my final answer. Okay? Now, do you have to do this work out here, the scratch work? No, but I think it will be helpful so you don't make any careless mistakes. Okay, so you're going to multiply the numbers and then add them when you're done with the row and the column. And then you'll go on to the next row times column. All right, I'm going to do a few more with you since that's probably like, what in the world? All right, so here's our work for today. I'm going to do these. Oop, I just showed you the answers and I did not mean to do that. There are a couple in here that are not possible. So the first thing, I'm not going to do those. So just hint, FYI. So the first thing you want to do is, I do this every time. I'm going to come up with the dimensions above each one and then ask myself if it can be done. So this is a 2x2 and a 2x2. So the inner dimensions match, so I can do it. And so my answer will be a 2x2 because of the outer dimensions. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write a 2x2, kind of like the shell of the answer, so then I'll know kind of how it goes. All right, let's look at number 2. I'm not going to do it for you, but what is the dimension of number 2? So it's a 1x2. And the next one is a 2x2. So can we multiply those? Do the inner dimensions match? Yes. And my answer will be a 1x2. So 1 row, 2 columns. So it'll look like that. Okay? All right, so let's do this number 1. This one's going to be a little harder than the first example I did because you have 2 rows and 2 columns. All right, so let's start by doing the first row times the first column. So I'm going to do the -3 times the 2, which will give me -6. And then the -5, I move my hands or my fingers each time, or my pencil. So the pencil goes -3 times 2, but then I move and go -5 times 4. So -5 times 4 is -20. And now I'm done with that row times that column, so I'm going to add those two numbers up. So that gives me -26. All right, now I'm going to move on. I'm going to stay on the row. Okay, stay on the row, but I'm going to move columns. All right, so I'm going to do -3 times 5, which is -15, and -5 times -6, which is a +30. You see how there's a lot of room for error here? So just take your time and go slowly. Questions? I really wish I could actually hear your questions and everything. All right, so now we have done row times both of the columns. So now we need to jump down to the next row. So I'm going to go next row, and then I'm going back to the first column. And then I'm going to do 6 times 2, the first two numbers, so that's 12. And then I'm going to move to the next two numbers, -2 times 4, which is -8. And you see how I'm writing them in the, like my scratch work, I'm putting in the position of which the final answer will be. Okay? And now lastly, I'm going to stick with that second row, excuse me, and I'm going to go to the second column. So then that's going to be 6 times 5 is 30. Negative 2 times negative 6 gives me a positive 12. So that's 42. And there's my answer. Okay, so row times column, same row times next column, and then you jump down to the second row back to the first column. All right, let's do another one. Here's number 5. Okay, so 5 is a 1, 2, 3 by 2, and this one is a 2 by 2. So can I do them? Yes, because the inner dimensions match. And so we're going to have a 3 by 2 as our answer because of the outer dimensions. Okay, so I'm going to have 3 rows, so it's going to be kind of longer. 1, 2, 3, that's about enough space. And then 2. Okay? All right, so let's go. We're going to do row, the first row to the first column. All right, so that's going to be 5 times negative 5, which is negative 25. And then negative 4 times 2, which is 8. So let's add those up. Negative 25 plus 8 is negative 17. Okay, so now I've done first row times first column. I'm going to stay on the row and I'm going to go to the next column. So row times column, and now I'm going to do my answers here because that's like the first row, second column entry spot. Okay, so I'm going to do 5 times 5, which is 25, and then 4 times 6, which is 24. I really think color coding helps, and I think circling the rows and the columns helps as well, but you can kind of figure out what works best for you. I'll try to maybe find some other YouTube channels that have other work maybe in a different way, so you can see if you like it a different way. All right, so I've done first row times both columns. Now I'm going to go second row times first column. So that's negative 25 plus 2. So that's negative 23. And then I'm going to go row times second column. So that's 25 plus 6, which is 31. And then, okay, so I've done row times column for the second row. Now I need to do it for the third row. So I'm going to jump down and do, okay, let's see. I'm trying to not run out of colors here. I haven't done pink yet. Okay, so we're going to do negative 6 times this column. So that's 30 plus 8. Okay, and then maybe I'll use black. I haven't used that. And then I'm going to do last row times last column. So that's going to be negative 30 plus 24. Okay, so if I were in class right now, I would just tell you, I'll do this with my fingers and kind of move my fingers each time. Obviously that's a little hard to show here. So that's what, negative 6. Okay, so maybe just take a minute, replay it a couple of times if you need to. And then the last thing I want to show you is that you can also do it with variables. So don't get flustered or whatever with variables. We're going to do the same exact thing. All right, so let's make sure we can do it first of all. So we have a 2 by 2 here, and we have a 2 by 1. So our answer is going to be these match. So yes, we can do them. And our answer will be a 2 by 1. Okay? Sorry if my son sounds a little upset right now. Okay, so we're going to have a 2 row by a 1 column, which means we're just going to have one term. I might need a little more room than that. We'll see in just a second. Okay, so we're going to do row times column, row times column. We only have one column this time, so that's kind of nice. All right, so we're going to do negative 24x and then minus 4x, because or you can say it as negative 4x, whatever. So the 4x times the negative 6, and then move your fingers 4 times negative x. Now, are these like terms? Can we add these together? And the answer is yes, because they both have an x, so that's negative 28x. Okay? So don't get intimidated by it. You can do it, no problem. All right, then we're going to do row times column here. So that'll be 6x times negative 6 will give me negative 36x. And then you move, so it'll be negative y times a negative x, which is positive xy or yx. It doesn't matter how you write that, because multiplication is commutative. And then, can we add these two? And the answer is no, because they are not like terms. This one has xy and this one just has x. So we're literally just going to leave it like that. Yeah, which is why I told you I thought I might need a little more room, and I did. That's okay. So 36x plus xy. That looks like, you know, two terms. And it is two terms, but it's only one entry in the matrix. All right, so there are your answers for 3 of them. I want you to try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more, and I'll give you a really big hint. There are only 2 that are undefined or impossible, so that means you're only really going to have to do 5 multiplying problems, okay? So I want you to send me 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, and 10 through email or Remind when you get done, and try your best. I'll try to link another YouTube video or 2 also to see if it might make a little more sense. All right, y'all have a good